Okay everyone, so in this video I just want to go and show you here how we can go and create a simple JS project using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And let's go create a body mass index from where we will be calculating the mass or weight and height of a person. And if we try to go, we'll be playing around with the formula here for BMI in JavaScript. As you can see here, we have this formula: body mass index, weight in kilogram, divide by height squared. So that's what we're going to be playing around with JavaScript here. Now let's go and try to you can now create a folder, then you can name it BMI or body mass index calculator. Here I have already created a folder. I'm already in my Visual Studio Code here. I've opened that folder in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to create an index.html styles folder. So perhaps we can work on the CSS or styles.css. Let's go and have a universal reset, just so that we can set margins and paddings to 0 for our project here. So if we go and open this up, in you will see there's no information yet in our document. Let me just go and create an HTML5 template, or use an HTML5 template, and let's title this simple BMI calculator. And of course, let's go and link that style sheet, styles.css. Let's make sure that we have the relative path here. And then here perhaps we can go and change the body elements color, background color. Let's see here. I'll just stick with one of my favorite colors, green. Let's see how that will look. Okay, so we have that. Now let's go proceed to our index.html, and let's go and try to put here a header and h1 body mass index calculator, and let's just check how that will look. Okay, we have our body mass index calculator text. Now let's go and have a section from where we will be placing a div element that we can go and reference using the class name calculator. And for CSS purposes or aesthetics, perhaps as we continue on improving this website, we can go and try to play around with CSS, so we can use this for referencing. So if you're not yet familiar with CSS, this is a class name that we use to reference an element, so that we can go and target this element for styling or for manipulation through JavaScript. So now let's go and have weight here. We would want to have our user interact with our site, and we can do this by the user through the user using the input element here that will serve as our this will serve as the element from where the user can go and input encode data. So we'll have a number, that's why we have a type attribute here, and then we can go and try to give this an ID of weight. Let's have a line break. Let's go and refresh this. Okay, so perhaps we can go and just for, let's have a margin of at least 5%. Let's see how that will. Okay, so now we have a margin for our elements contents here, or our element content. So that will be top, right, bottom, and left, just so that it will be. And we can also text align center, so at least we can go and, okay, so we now have our text here aligned to the center. Then we can go and we can go and use height here and the soup element for us to be able to showcase that this is m squared, and input type number with an ID of height. So a line break here. Okay, so you would see we have the soup element that allowed us to make this look like we have a square value here, height meter squared. So now let's go and try to add a let's just go and use line breaks here for our spaces, white spaces. Let's have a button that will have an ID of button and calculate BMI, or let's just say calculate. If we go back to our browser, we now have that calculate button present on our browser. We can apply CSS for better aesthetics, but for now let's just go and focus with the functionality first. Let's have a line break here. Normally we use CSS for white spaces, but just for this exercise I'm using line breaks to add some spaces. Now let's have another div, and let's call it this, or let's have this as an, let's give this an ID of BMI result and h2 of calculated BMI, or calculated result BMI result. Then let's have a paragraph, then an ID of BMI, and let's leave it with an empty element content. So we have our opening element tag, we have the closing element tag, and we did not place any content or element content. Now let's go and do some of the computation. We'll be using JavaScript, and we'll be creating a function, a customized function that I'll name BMI calc. So you can name this depending on how you will be describing the function. So I am using camel case, or you can also use snake case, or you can even complete this like BMI calculate, as long as it will be a lot easier for your for you to identify that this is a function that will be calculating our value for BMI, body mass index. So let's assign or create and initialize our variables here. Let's have a weight variable that will be targeting our reference. We can target the element from where the user will be interacting using the get element by ID, as you can see here, guys. And we can target this by using the ID that we have here, the unique ID for this input element, Let's enclose that inside of parenthesis, and we can access the property value of that element through this value keyword. Okay, and we'll also be creating another variable from where we will be assigning document.getElement by ID element, not elements, and same deal, we'll be doing height and value. So once the user inputs values here, this will be assigned to these two variables, the height and the weight variable. Then we can now go and create our formula, which is BMI, variable BMI, that will be a computation of our you would see here weight and height, and I multiply this to height for us to be able to produce the output of squared. And this is just one of the formula. There are other ways, guys, so perhaps later we'll go and talk about that. Right now, let's have a BMI result here and a variable. Then we will be targeting the get element by ID, and I'm going to target BMI here. That will be the paragraph element with an ID of with an empty element content, and we will be playing around with the empty element content. So we'll be using the inner HTML keyword here, and then let's go and assign this the variable BMI. So the value of the computed value of our BMI here will be assigned to this variable. Let's go first check in our browser how this will look. So if I go, let's say I put 65 and 1.8, and it's not working. So that is because we haven't yet called our function. So we need to go to the button, and let's use the onClick attribute, and let's call the function that we just created that will be calculating for us the BMI. So let's go and refresh, and it's not working. Why isn't it working? Let's go and troubleshoot here. BMI calc, and there's no semicolon. That could be the reason. Let's see here. Why is this not working? Get element by ID. Get element by ID. Okay. So typo, and there we go, guys. We were able to calculate the BMI result. You will see that making a simple mistake as a typo error will definitely not make your code work. So it's really important that you also have you get to develop debugging skills, and at the same time, of course, try to figure out the error by trying to debug and look at your code. Sometimes it can be a simple semicolon missing. That really happens to everyone. Now let's go and try to work on rounding off our value here, guys. I think we can go and round this off. So if we go and try to go here, and there's another way on how we can go and play around with this, guys. Instead of having height multiplied by height, we can go and specify here math.pow. This is a function in JavaScript, and we can give this up two parameters. One will be the height parameter, which is the height value that we have here that will be referencing this input element, and another parameter that will be that will be allowing us to give this a square root of 2, or a power of 2, sorry. So let's go and put this in a parenthesis also. And if we try to go, and you would see, guys, if we try to refresh this and if we recalculate this, it's the same value. Okay, so that's another way on how we can go and write this. And another function that we can go and work in JavaScript will be the math.round. And let's go and return the value here for the output in our BMI result variable here, from where we will be assigning the value of the BMI formula that we have created here and assigned in the variable BMI. And now we have the math.round function that will be allowing us, that will be providing us the feature of rounding off the value. So let's go and try to test this out if this will work. So refresh, calculate, and there we go, guys. We now have our simple body mass index calculator, and we were able to go and calculate using the formula weight in kilogram divided by height squared. So perhaps in the next video we can go and try to make this responsive, and we can improve on the CSS. But for now, that will be all for this video.